Hello and thank you for joining for tonight's stories. I hope you enjoy. The Watchers in Twilight. The Santa Lucia Mountains rose from the California coast like the spine of a sleeping dragon, their peaks lost in clouds, their slopes cloaked in forests of oak and pine and chaparral that had witnessed centuries of human passage. They were beautiful mountains, beloved by hikers and photographers and those seeking solitude from the rush of modern life. They were also old mountains, very old, and like all old things they had secrets. Mara Ellison knew about the secrets. She had grown up with them, the stories her grandmother told, the warnings whispered by the locals in the towns that clung to the mountain's foothills. The Dark Watchers, they were called, figures that stood on the ridges at dusk, motionless, watching. They had been part of local folklore for generations, dismissed by scientists as optical illusions, atmospheric phenomena, tricks of the light. Mara had dismissed them too. She was a documentary filmmaker, a rationalist, a skeptic. She had made films about Bigfoot hoaxes, about ghost hunters who found nothing, about the psychology of belief. She knew that the human mind was wired to see patterns, faces, intention in randomness. She knew that the Dark Watchers were just shadows, just stones, just the product of tired eyes and suggestible minds. She was wrong. The expedition began on a Tuesday in October, when the coastal fog was thick enough to cut with a knife, and the mountains were hidden behind a wall of gray. Mara had assembled her team carefully, 6 people, each chosen for their skills, their reliability, their willingness to spend 2 weeks in the wilderness chasing shadows. There was Eli, her sound engineer, a quiet man with a talent for capturing the subtlest noises. There was Sarah, her cinematographer, who could make anything look cinematic. There was David, the producer, who handled logistics and kept them on schedule. And there were the 3 researchers, grad students from UC Santa Cruz, eager for field experience and resume padding. They met at the trailhead at dawn, loading their packs with cameras, sensors, camping gear, and the optimism of people who didn't yet know they were walking into a nightmare. "The plan is simple," Mara announced, consulting her tablet. "We hike to the ridge above Ventana Wilderness, set up base camp and document everything. Every shadow, every sound, every sighting reported by locals. We analyze it all, find the rational explanations, and make a film about why people believe in the Dark Watchers." "And if we find something we can't explain?" Eli asked. "Then we explain it better," Mara smiled, the confident smile of someone who had never encountered the truly inexplicable. "There's always an explanation, always." They started hiking. The trail was well marked at first, a popular path that switchbacked up the mountain through groves of live oak and madrona. The fog was lifting as they climbed, revealing views of the coast that were genuinely breathtaking, the Pacific stretching to the horizon, the shoreline curving away in both directions, the world reduced to blue and gold and green. Mara filmed everything: the trail, the trees, the views. She interviewed her team, asking them about their expectations, their beliefs, their openness to the possibility that the Dark Watchers might be real. "I think it's atmospheric," Sarah said, adjusting her camera. "Temperature inversions, light refraction, maybe some kind of magnetic phenomenon." "I think it's cultural," said Tom, one of the grad students. "The Spanish brought the stories with them. They have similar legends in the Pyrenees." "I think it's bullshit," said David, the producer, "but it'll make a good movie." They laughed, kept hiking, didn't notice when the trail began to change. It was subtle at first. The markers became less frequent, the path less defined. The trees grew thicker, the underbrush denser. The views that had been spectacular became obscured by forest, then by fog again, a different fog than the coastal mist, thicker, more localized. "Are we still on the trail?" Sarah asked, checking her GPS. "According to this, yes." Mara consulted her own device, "but the signal is getting weak." "Weak? It's gone." Tom held up his phone. "No bars, no GPS, nothing." "That's impossible. We're not that remote. But they were. They had walked for hours, climbing steadily, and now they were in territory that wasn't on any map Mara had studied. The trees were wrong, species she didn't recognize, twisted into shapes that seemed almost deliberate. The rocks were wrong, too smooth, too regular, as if they had been shaped by hands rather than weather. And the trail was disappearing. Mara watched it happen. One moment there was a path, a clear line through the underbrush. The next it was gone, swallowed by vegetation that seemed to have grown in seconds. "Stop," she commanded, her voice sharper than she intended. "Everyone stop." They stopped, looking around, realizing for the first time that they were lost. "This is wrong," Eli said, his voice low. "This is all wrong." "It's just a trail," Mara insisted. "Trails change, weather happens. We backtrack, find the main path, keep going." "Mara," Sarah's voice was strange, tight. "Look." She pointed. On the ground, in the soft earth of what had been the trail, there were footprints. They were large, too large, and they were shaped wrong, elongated, narrow, with impressions that suggested not 5 toes but something else, something that didn't match any human anatomy. "Bear," Tom suggested, but his voice cracked. "Bears have 5 toes," Eli said. These have 3, and look at the size." The prints were 18 inches long, maybe more. "It's a hoax," Mara said, but she didn't believe it. "Someone's playing a joke." "A joke out here, miles from anywhere." David was backing away, his eyes wide. "Mara, we need to go now." "We can't go. The trail is gone." "Then we make a new trail. We go down, we follow the slope." Mara looked at her team, at the fear that was spreading like contagion. She thought of her skepticism, her rationalism, her certainty that the world was explainable. "Okay," she said. "We go down together, stay close." They started moving, descending through the forest, trying to find a way back to civilization. But the forest seemed to conspire against them. Every path they chose led them deeper into the wilderness. Every direction they tried ended in thickets or cliffs or streams that shouldn't have been there. And always they found the footprints, ahead of them, behind them, circling them. Something was hurting them. They made camp at dusk, exhausted, frightened, huddled together in a clearing that seemed slightly less threatening than the surrounding forest. They had food, water, shelter, the basics of survival, but they had lost something more important. They had lost their way. "The GPS is still not working," Tom reported, trying his phone for the 100th time. "And the compass, look." He showed them. The needle spun slowly, never settling, as if the magnetic field of the earth had been disrupted. "That's impossible," Mara said. "So is everything else today." Sarah was setting up her camera, not to film but to use the night vision. "I'm going to keep watch, record anything that moves." "I'll take first shift," Eli said. "I'm not sleeping anyway." They divided the night into watches, 2 hours each, while the others tried to rest. Mara lay in her sleeping bag, staring at the sky, watching the stars emerge one by one. The mountains were beautiful at night. The air was clear, the stars bright, the world silent except for the sounds of the forest, wind in the trees, small animals moving in the darkness, the distant hoot of an owl. She was almost asleep when Eli shook her awake. "Mara, you need to see this." She sat up, groggy, confused. What time is it?" "Just come." He led her to the edge of the clearing, where Sarah stood with her camera, pointing at the ridge above them. "There," Sarah whispered, "on the ridge." Mara looked. At first she saw nothing, just rocks, trees, the dark shape of the mountain against the stars. Then she saw it. A figure standing on the ridge, motionless. It was tall, very tall, and it was wearing something, a coat maybe or a cloak that flared out at the shoulders, and on its head a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed its face completely. "It's one of them," Eli breathed, "a dark watcher." It's a person, Mara said, but her voice lacked conviction. A hiker, a local, someone out for a night walk. At midnight, in the wilderness, wearing that, Sarah zoomed in with her camera, the night vision revealing details that the naked eye couldn't see. Mara, look at the face. Mara looked. The figure was facing them, she realized. Not looking at the horizon, not admiring the view, but facing directly toward their camp, and where the face should have been. There was nothing, just darkness, a void where features should have existed. It's the shadow, she said. The hat is casting a shadow over the face. In night vision, Sarah showed her the screen. The figure was clear, detailed, every fold of its clothing visible. But the face was still blank, still empty, still a void that seemed to drink the light. Zoom in closer, Mara commanded. Sarah adjusted the focus, bringing the figure closer. And as the image sharpened, Mara felt something cold run down her spine. The figure wasn't just standing there. It was watching them. She could feel it, the intensity of its attention, the weight of its gaze. Even without eyes, without a face, it was looking at them. "It's moving," Eli whispered. It was. Slowly, deliberately, the figure raised one arm, pointed at them, at Mara specifically. Then it lowered its arm, and it waited. "What does it want?" Tom asked. He had joined them, the other grad students clustering behind, all of them staring at the impossible figure on the ridge. "I don't know," Mara admitted, "but I intend to find out." She started toward the ridge, her legs moving before her mind could stop them. "Mara, no," Sarah grabbed her arm, "you can't go up there." "Why not? It's just standing there. It's not doing anything." "It's watching us. It's been watching us all day. Those footprints." "Those footprints could be anything. This could be anything." But Mara stopped, looking at the figure, feeling the weight of its attention. "But I need to know. I need to understand." "Understanding can wait until morning," David said, his voice firm. "We're not going anywhere in the dark." Mara looked at the figure one last time. It was still there, still watching, still waiting. "Okay," she said. "Morning, we go at first light." She turned away, went back to her sleeping bag, tried to rest. But she could feel it, the presence on the ridge, the watching, the waiting. And when she closed her eyes, she saw the figure in her mind, pointing at her, choosing her. She didn't sleep that night. None of them did. The figure was gone at dawn. Mara climbed to the ridge at first light, Sarah and Eli following, the others staying at camp. The ridge was empty, just rocks and scrub and the distant view of the coast that was somehow wrong. The landmarks she should have recognized were missing, replaced by terrain that didn't match any map. But the figure had been there. She could see the signs. Scuff marks in the dirt. A piece of fabric caught on a branch, black, coarse, unlike any material she recognized. And the footprints. They were the same as before, 18 inches long, 3-toed. But there was something else now. A second set of prints, smaller, human-sized, leading away from the first. "Someone was here," Eli said, examining the tracks, "walking with it or following it. Or being led by it." Sarah pointed to the pattern. "Look, the human prints are in front, the other prints are behind, like something was hurting someone." "Or carrying someone," Mara added. She had seen the spacing, the way the human prints seemed to drag, to stumble. Someone who couldn't walk properly. "Who?" "I don't know, but we need to find out." Mara looked at the trail, at the footprints leading away along the ridge. "We follow." "Mara, this is crazy. We don't know what we're following. We don't know where it leads." "I know." She started walking, following the tracks. "But I also know that if we don't find out, we're going to spend the rest of our lives wondering what we missed, what we could have understood." "Assuming we have lives," Eli muttered, but he followed. They tracked the footprints for 2 hours, along the ridge, down into a valley, up another slope. The terrain grew wilder, less traveled, more strange. The trees were twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. The rocks were arranged in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. And the fog returned, thick and localized, reducing visibility to 20 feet. "We should go back," Sarah said. "We're losing the light." "It's morning," Mara pointed out. "Is it?" Sarah held up her phone. The screen showed 2:00 p.m., but the light was wrong, dim, gray, like perpetual dusk. "The fog," Mara said. "It's just the fog." But she wasn't sure. The light felt wrong somehow. Time felt wrong. They had been walking for 2 hours, but it felt like longer, much longer. "Look," Eli said, pointing. Ahead through the fog, a shape, a structure, not a natural formation. A cabin. It was old, weathered, barely standing. But it was there in the middle of the wilderness, miles from any trail, any road, any sign of human habitation. "Who would build a cabin out here?" Sarah asked. "Someone who didn't want to be found." Mara approached cautiously, her hand on the pepper spray she carried for bears. "Hello? Anyone there?" No answer, just the wind, the fog, the creak of old wood. She pushed open the door. The interior was empty. Just one room with a stone fireplace, a wooden table, a single chair, and on the table a book. Mara picked it up. It was a journal, old, the pages yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was faded but legible. "Day 47, she read aloud. "They are still watching. They never stop watching. I have learned not to look back, not to meet their gaze, but I can feel them, always feel them. They are waiting for me to make a mistake, waiting for me to." The entry ended there. Mara turned the page, found another entry from a later date. "Day 112, I couldn't help it. I looked directly at one of them for too long, and now I understand. They don't take, they trade. They offered me a choice and I took it. I wanted to see. Now I will see forever. I am one of them now, or I will be. The transformation is slow. I can feel myself changing, becoming. Soon I will stand on the ridge. Soon I will watch. Soon I will wait for the next one, for the next offering, for the next trade." Mara closed the book. Her hands were shaking. "What is this?" Eli asked. "What does it mean?" "I don't know." Mara looked around the cabin at the empty walls, the cold fireplace. "But someone lived here, someone who saw them, who talked to them, who became them." "Became them." "Read it yourself." She handed him the journal. "The author claims they traded places with the Watchers, that they became one of them." "That's insane." "Is it?" Sarah was at the window looking out at the fog. "Mara, look." Mara joined her. Through the fog, visible now that they were looking for them, figures stood on the surrounding ridges. Not one, dozens, all motionless, all watching, all wearing wide-brimmed hats that shadowed their faces. "They're surrounding us," Eli whispered. They're everywhere." "We need to go," Mara said, her voice tight. "Now back to camp, back to the trail." "What trail?" Sarah asked. "The trail is gone, everything is gone." She was right. When they emerged from the cabin, the landscape had changed. The ridge they had followed was gone. The valley was different. The fog had thickened, obscuring everything beyond 20 feet. They were lost, truly lost, in a place that didn't exist on any map. And they were being watched. They found the first body an hour later. It was Tom, one of the grad students. He had wandered off during the night, they realized, sleepwalking maybe, or lured away by something they hadn't heard. He was lying at the base of a cliff, his neck broken, his face frozen in an expression of surprise. But his eyes were gone, not removed, not destroyed, just empty, voids like the faces of the Watchers. "He looked," Eli said, his voice hollow. "He looked at them. That's what the journal said. Never looked directly at them for too long." "We don't know that," Mara said, but she was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "We don't know what happened." "We know enough." David was backing away from the body, his face pale. "We know we need to get out of here, now." "How?" Sarah demanded. "We don't know where we are. We don't know which way is out." "We pick a direction and walk," David pointed. That way, downhill. Eventually we hit the coast. Eventually, Mara wiped her eyes, tried to think. David, we could be miles from the coast. We could be. She stopped, because she realized she didn't know where they were, not just lost, removed, taken. The mountains she had known, the trails she had studied, they were gone. This was a different place. A place that existed alongside the world she knew, touching it at points but separate from it. A place where the Watchers lived. We need to be smart, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. We need to stay together, and we need to not look at them, no matter what happens. And if they come for us, Eli asked. Then we run. They left Tom's body where it lay. There was no way to carry him, no way to bury him. They just left him, and the fog closed around him, and he was gone. They walked for hours downhill, always downhill. The terrain grew steeper, more treacherous. The fog never lifted, and always on the ridges above them the Watchers stood, motionless, watching. Mara counted them. 12. Then 20. Then she stopped counting because the numbers didn't make sense, because they seemed to multiply when she wasn't looking, because the fog hid them and revealed them in patterns that hurt her mind. Stop, she commanded when they reached a flat area that seemed slightly less dangerous than the slopes around it. We rest, we eat, we think. They sat huddled together, sharing energy bars and water that was running low. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. Eli broke the silence. I heard something last night before he went. What? Mara asked. Whispers in a language I didn't recognize, and then I heard my name, my mother's voice, calling me. Your mother's dead, Sarah said. I know, Eli's hands were shaking. That's why I didn't follow, but Tom's mother is alive. Maybe he heard her voice too. They're using our memories, Mara realized. Our fears, our desires, they're luring us. How do we fight that? David asked. How do we fight something that knows what we want? We remember what's real, Mara said. We hold onto each other, and we don't follow the voices. They sat in silence, listening to the fog, feeling the weight of the Watchers' attention. Then Mara stood up. I'm going to talk to them. What? No, Sarah grabbed her arm. Mara, you can't. I have to. Someone has to communicate. Someone has to understand what they want. She pulled free. Stay here. If I don't come back, find another way. Mara. But she was already walking, climbing toward the nearest ridge, toward the nearest Watcher. It waited for her, motionless, patient. She climbed until she was level with it, 10 feet away, close enough to see details. The coat was real, she realized. Fabric. Old, weathered, but real. The hat, too. These weren't spirits or illusions. They were physical, solid. But the face. She forced herself not to look at the face, to keep her eyes on the coat, the hat, the hands that hung at its sides, long fingers, too long with too many joints. I know you can hear me, she said, her voice loud in the silence. I know you're intelligent. I want to understand. I want to trade. The Watcher moved. Slowly, deliberately, it turned its head toward her. She saw the face, the void, the absence. And she heard the voice. Not words, not exactly, but meaning clear and cold like water from a deep well. You asked to see, it said. Now you will. Myra felt something shift in her mind, a door opening, a curtain pulling back. She saw. She saw everything. The mountains, not as they were but as they had been, for thousands of years, for millions. She saw the first humans, the Chumash, the Salinan, walking these trails, seeing the Watchers, learning the rules. She saw the Spanish, the missionaries, the settlers, all of them encountering the Watchers, all of them learning to look away. She saw the Watchers themselves, not human, not animal, not spirit, something else, something that had always been here, that would always be here, something that watched because that was its nature, that waited because time meant nothing to it, that traded because it was lonely. Lonely, the word was almost human, almost sad. We watch, the voice continued. We wait, we trade, a life for a life, a sight for a sight. You see us. Now we see you through your eyes forever. Mara felt something enter her mind. Not painful, not violent, but invasive. A presence. A passenger. She could feel it looking through her eyes, seeing what she saw, experiencing the world through her senses. No, she whispered, I didn't agree to this. You asked to see, you looked, the trade is made. I want to undo it, I want to go back. There is no back, only forward, only becoming. She felt herself changing, not physically, not yet, but mentally. Her thoughts were slower, more deliberate. Her perception was shifting, expanding. She could feel the other watchers now, dozens of them, hundreds, all across the mountains, all connected, all sharing what they saw. And she could feel the others like her, the ones who had traded, who had become, who stood now on the ridges, watching, waiting, their human lives forgotten, their human concerns dissolved into the endless patience of the watchers. Mara. Sarah's voice, distant, frightened. Mara, come back, don't look at it. But it was too late. She had looked, she had seen, and now she was becoming. She turned slowly, feeling the presence in her mind settle in, make itself at home. She looked at her friends, her team, the people she had led into this nightmare. Go, she said, and her voice was different now, slower, deeper. Go while you can, don't look back, don't look up, just go. Mara, what did they do to you? Eli was climbing toward her, his face twisted with fear and concern. They showed me, she smiled, and it was not her smile. They showed me everything, and now I watch. Now I wait for the next trade, for the next one who wants to see. No, Sarah had reached her now, grabbing her shoulders, shaking her. Mara, fight it, come back. I can't. Mara looked at her friend, really looked at her, and saw something she hadn't seen before. The potential, the possibility. But you can all go if you promise. If you promise never to look, never to seek, never to ask. We promise, David said from below. Just come down, come with us. I can't. Mara stepped back away from them toward the watcher that stood behind her. But I can give you this, a warning, a gift. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her notebook, her field notes, her observations, her skepticism. She threw it to Sarah. Don't read it, she said. Burn it, forget it, and never, never come back to these mountains. Then she turned fully and walked toward the watcher. Mara, no. But she was gone. She stood beside the watcher, motionless, her eyes fixed on the horizon, her face emptying, becoming void. She had become one of them. They ran. Sarah led the way, clutching Mara's notebook to her chest, her mind reeling from what she had witnessed. Behind her came Eli, then David, then the remaining grad student, Jenny, pale and silent, her eyes wide with shock. They ran downhill, through fog that seemed to part before them and close behind them, through forest that shifted and changed, through terrain that made no sense. They ran until their lungs burned, until their legs gave out, until they collapsed in a clearing that seemed, impossibly, to be the same clearing where they had made camp the night before. We're back, Eli gasped. How are we back? We're not, David said, looking around. It's similar, but, look, the trees are different, the rocks. He was right. The clearing was the same size, the same shape, but the details were wrong. The tree that had been an oak was now a pine. The boulder that had been gray was now red. It's copying, Sarah realized. The place is copying our camp, making a replica. Why? To confuse us, to trap us. She stood up, her legs shaking. We can't stay here, we need to keep moving. Where? Jenny asked, her voice small. Where do we go? Down, always down, toward the coast. But they both knew that down didn't mean what it should. The geography was wrong. The physics were wrong. They were in a place that followed different rules. They started walking again, slower now, conserving energy, watching for dangers. The fog was lifting, revealing a landscape that was beautiful and terrible, mountains that shouldn't exist, valleys that were too deep, trees that were too tall. And always on the ridges above them the watchers stood. Not as many as before, but enough. Always enough. "Why don't they just take us?" Eli asked. "If they want us, why don't they just come down?" "Because they can't," Sarah said. "Or they won't. They need us to come to them, to look, to trade." That's what Mara did. Yes, Sarah felt tears welling up, forced them back. She looked, she asked, she traded. Traded what? Herself. Sarah touched the notebook in her pocket. She traded herself for knowledge, for understanding. And now she's one of them. Yes. They walked in silence, the weight of that knowledge pressing down on them. Mara was gone, not dead, but worse. Changed, transformed, lost to them forever. "The notebook," David said. "What did she mean, burn it?" "I don't know, but she said not to read it." "Maybe we should. Maybe there's something in there that can help us." "Or maybe that's what they want." Sarah pulled the notebook out, looked at it. "Maybe reading it is another trap, another way to become." "We can't just wander forever," Eli said. "We need information. We need to understand what we're dealing with." "We know what we're dealing with." Sarah put the notebook away. "We're dealing with something that watches, that waits, that trades. The only way to survive is to not engage, to not look, to not ask. And if that's not enough, if they come for us anyway, then we run." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't enough. They couldn't run forever. They were lost, trapped, hunted by things that had all the time in the world. They found the trail at midday. It was a real trail, marked, maintained, with a sign that read VENTANA Wilderness Trail and mileage to the nearest ranger station. "We're saved," Jenny breathed. "We're actually saved." "Wait," Sarah held up her hand. "Look at the sign." They looked. The sign was weathered, old, the paint faded, but there was something wrong with the lettering. The words seemed to shift when they weren't looking directly at them, changing from English to something else, something that hurt to read. "It's a trap," Eli said. "It has to be." "Maybe," Sarah approached the sign cautiously. "Or maybe it's real, maybe we found our way back. After everything, after Mara, after the fog and the footprints and the becoming." "I don't know." Sarah touched the sign, felt the wood, solid and real. "But if this is a way out, we have to take it. And if it's not, then we're no worse off than before." She started down the trail, the others following. It felt real. The dirt was packed, the markers were clear, the direction was downhill. They walked for an hour, then two, and the terrain began to change, to become more familiar, more normal. The trees were right, the rocks were right, the sun was in the right position. "I think," David said, his voice full of hope, "I think we made it, I think we're out." "Don't celebrate yet," Sarah warned. But she felt it too, the pressure lifting, the weight of being watched fading, the world returning to normal. They rounded a bend and saw it, the parking lot, the trailhead, the cars. "Oh my God," Jenny sobbed. "Oh my God, we're out, we're actually out." They ran the last quarter mile, bursting from the trees into the sunlight, into the real world, into safety. But something was wrong. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no people, just empty spaces and a silence that was too complete. "Where?" Eli started. "It's not real," Sarah said, her voice hollow. "It's another copy, another trap. But it looks real, it feels real." "It is real," a new voice from behind them. They spun. A man stood at the edge of the parking lot, dressed in ranger uniform, his face weathered and kind. He looked normal, human. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded. "Ranger Mike," he said, smiling. "I've been waiting for you." "Waiting? How did you know we were here?" "I know everything that happens in these mountains." He stepped closer, and Sarah saw that his eyes were wrong, too dark, too deep. "I've been watching you, all of you, since you entered the forest." "You're one of them," Eli whispered. "You're a watcher." "I was," the ranger smiled. Once, long ago, I traded like your friend, I watched like the others, but I was special. I kept more of myself, enough to interact, to guide, to help. Help, David's voice was harsh. You call this help trapping us, hunting us. I didn't trap you, you trapped yourselves. You came looking, you asked to see, you looked when you should have looked away. The ranger, the thing wearing the ranger's skin, shrugged. I just facilitate, I help the process along. What process? The trade, the becoming, the eternal watching. He gestured to the mountains behind them. They need new eyes, new perspectives. Humans see things differently. They value that. We're not trading, Sarah said. We're leaving. Are you? The ranger smiled. Look around. They looked. The parking lot was gone. The trail was gone. They were standing on a ridge, surrounded by fog, with the watchers visible in every direction. You never left, the ranger said. You've been walking in circles, in dreams, in memories. The real world is far away now, farther than you can reach. No, Sarah backed away. No, this isn't real. It's real enough. The ranger stepped closer. And now you have a choice. The same choice your friend had: look, see, trade, or what? Or wander, forever, lost in the fog, until you become something else, something less than human, something that isn't even worth trading for. Sarah looked at her companions. Eli, brave but terrified. David, angry but defeated. Jenny, broken, barely conscious. What happens if we trade? She asked. Really? You become a watcher. You stand on the ridges. You see everything. The past, the present, the possible futures. You become part of something vast and ancient and not entirely unpleasant. And we lose ourselves. You change, you become more and less. The ranger's smile was almost sympathetic. But you don't end, you don't die, you just become different. And if we refuse, then you wander, until you can't wander anymore, until you become part of the mountains, part of the fog, part of the silence. Sarah thought of Mara, standing motionless on the ridge, her face becoming void. She thought of Tom, broken at the base of the cliff. She thought of the journal, the warnings, the unwritten rule. Never look directly at them for too long. But she had looked, they all had, and now they were trapped. There's another option, she said. Is there? We fight. The ranger laughed, a genuine sound. Fight? How do you fight something that has always been, something that will always be? I don't know, but I'm going to try. She pulled out the notebook, Mara's notebook, and opened it. The pages were blank. What? She flipped through page after page, all empty. Where are the notes, the research? There never were any notes, the ranger said. Your friend didn't write anything. She didn't need to. She understood. She accepted. She became. Then why did she give me this? To carry, to hold, to keep you connected to her, to the possibility. The ranger reached out, touched the notebook. It's a link, a tether. Through this she can see you, watch you, wait for you. Sarah dropped the notebook, backed away. No, I won't become like her, I won't. Then wander. The ranger stepped back, fading into the fog. Wander until you can't, I'll be watching. He was gone. The watchers remained, motionless, patient. What do we do? Eli asked. We don't look, Sarah said. We don't trade, and we find another way out. How? I don't know, but there has to be one. There has to be. They started walking again, through the fog, through the mountains, through the endless watching. And somewhere on a distant ridge, Mara stood with the others, her face now void, her eyes now empty, watching them go. Waiting for them to return. They walked for days, or hours, or years. Time had become fluid, unreliable. The sun rose and set, but the intervals between didn't match any clock. They slept when they were tired, ate when they were hungry, moved when they could. The mountains were endless. Every ridge led to another ridge. Every valley opened into another valley. The watchers were always there, always watching, always waiting. But they didn't approach. They didn't attack, they just watched. Why don't they just take us? Jenny asked on the third day, or what felt like the third day. If they want us, why wait? Because they want us to choose, Sarah said. She had been thinking about it, analyzing it, trying to understand the rules of this place. The trade has to be voluntary. We have to look, we have to ask, we have to want it. That's stupid, David said. Why would anyone want to become that? Because of what they offer. Sarah looked at the ridge above them where a watcher stood silhouetted against the sky. Knowledge, understanding, the ability to see everything, to know everything, to be part of something eternal. That's not worth losing yourself. Isn't it? Sarah turned to him. Think about it. No more fear, no more uncertainty, no more death, just watching, waiting, being part of something vast. You've been thinking about it, Eli said, his voice careful. About trading. No, but she had. In the dark hours when the fog was thickest and the watching was heaviest, she had thought about it, the peace of it, the certainty, the end of struggle. We need to stay focused, David said. We need to find a way out. There is no way out, Jenny whispered. We're trapped, we're dead, we're just lingering. Don't say that, Sarah grabbed her shoulders. We're alive, we're human, we can fight this. How? By walking forever, by pretending we're going somewhere, Jenny laughed, a broken sound. Sarah, look around, there is no out, there's just this, forever. Then we make an out. Sarah released her, stepped back. We find a place they can't watch, a place they can't reach. Where? I don't know, but we'll find it. They kept walking. They found the path on the fifth day. It was different from the other trails they had followed. Older, more worn. The stones that lined it were weathered, carved with symbols that Sarah didn't recognize. This is old, Eli said, examining the stones. Really old, pre-Columbian maybe. Is it safe? Nothing here is safe. But he was already walking, following the path upward, toward a peak that was visible through the fog. They followed. The path was steep, treacherous, but it was real. Solid. The fog thinned as they climbed, revealing views that were breathtaking. Mountains in every direction, valleys dropping away, the distant glint of what might have been the ocean. We're high, David said, breathing hard. Higher than we should be. Higher than the mountains actually are, Sarah agreed. This place, it doesn't follow normal geography. Then what does it follow? Rules, patterns, intent. Sarah looked at the stones, at the symbols. Someone made this path, someone who understood this place, who knew how to navigate it. The Watchers. No, someone else, someone who resisted. They reached the summit at midday. The fog was gone, burned away by a sun that was too bright, too hot, and in the center of the peak a structure. It was a cairn, a pile of stones but arranged with purpose, and on top of it a backpack. Eli's, Sarah breathed, recognizing it immediately. They ran to it, pulling it open, searching through the contents. Water bottles empty, energy bars, wrappers, a first aid kit, and a journal. Not Myra's journal, a different one, newer. It's his, Eli said, his voice shaking. It's Eli's journal. But Eli is right here, David said. They turned. Eli was standing at the edge of the peak, looking out at the view, his back to them. Eli, Sarah approached him cautiously. Eli, what are you doing? Looking, he said, just looking. At what? He turned, and his face. His face was wrong. The features were there, but they were shifting, changing, becoming something else. His eyes were darkening, becoming voids. His skin was pale, becoming translucent. Eli, Sarah backed away. Eli, what's happening to you? I looked, he said, and his voice was different too, deeper, slower. I looked when you weren't watching, I looked at them, and they showed me. No, Eli, fight it. I don't want to fight, he smiled, and it was not his smile. I want to see, I want to know, I want to be part of. He stopped, his face contorted, shifting between human and something else. Eli, Sarah grabbed him, shook him. Come back, stay with us. Can't, he whispered. Already, too late, already becoming. When, how long? Since the cabin, since Mara, I looked. When you were reading the journal, I looked. And I saw. His eyes were almost void now, almost empty. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, fight it, come back. Can't, he pulled away from her, stepped back toward the edge. But I can give you a gift, a warning. What? The path, the one you're on, it leads somewhere but not out, never out. He pointed to the cairn. The stones, read them, understand them, they were made by someone who escaped, someone who found another way. What way? I don't know, I can't see it anymore. I can only see them. He looked up at the sky, at the watchers that were visible now, dozens of them surrounding the peak. They're calling me. They're welcoming me. I have to go. Eli, no. But he was already moving, walking toward the nearest watcher, his steps slow but certain. As he walked, he changed. His body elongated, his limbs stretched. His skin became pale, then translucent, then void. By the time he reached the watcher, he was one of them. He turned once and raised his hand in farewell, or warning, or both. Then he was still, motionless, watching. They stood on the peak, 3 of them now, surrounded by the watchers, by the silence, by the weight of being seen. He looked, David said, his voice hollow. He looked and he became. He looked deliberately, Sarah corrected. He chose, he traded. And now he's gone. Not gone, changed. Sarah walked to the cairn, examined the stones. He said these were made by someone who escaped, someone who found another way. What other way? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. She studied the symbols, the patterns, the arrangement. It was a code, she realized. A message. Left by someone who had understood this place, who had found a way to navigate it. It's a map, she said finally. Not of the mountains, but of the rules, the patterns, the way out. Can you read it? Some of it. She traced the symbols with her finger. This one means watch. This one means wait. This one means trade. But this. She found a symbol that was different, older, more worn. This one means refuse. Refuse what? The trade, the becoming. Sarah looked at the symbol, understanding dawning. Whoever made this, they found a way to refuse, to say no, to walk away. How? I don't know yet, but look, she pointed to the pattern. The symbols are arranged in a sequence. Watch, wait, trade, but then, refuse, and then. She followed the pattern, her finger moving from stone to stone. Then what? Then become, but not the same become, a different become. She looked up at David, at Jenny. They became something else, something other than the watchers. What? I don't know, but it's a way out, a different path. Where does it lead? Sarah followed the pattern to its end, to a stone that was different from the others. Black, not gray, smooth, not rough, and on it a single word. Home, she read. They followed the path. Not the one they had climbed, but a different one, revealed by the pattern of the stones. It led down from the peak, into a valley that hadn't been there before, through a forest that was different, older, wilder, more real. The watchers followed, not surrounding them now but watching from a distance, curious perhaps, or waiting to see if they would fail. They know, Jenny said. They know we're trying to escape. They know, Sarah agreed, but they don't know if we'll succeed. Will we? I don't know, but we have to try. The path led them to a stream, then along the stream to a waterfall, then behind the waterfall to a cave. It's a dead end, David said. No, Sarah examined the cave, the walls, the floor. Look. She pointed to the back wall, where symbols were carved, the same symbols from the cairn, arranged in the same pattern. It's a door, she realized, a way through. Through to where? Home. She touched the symbols, tracing the pattern. Watch, wait, trade, refuse, become. As she traced the final symbol, the wall shimmered, shifted, became transparent, then solid again but different. A tunnel leading into darkness. We go through, Sarah said. We don't know what's on the other side. I know. She looked at her companions, at David and Jenny, at the fear and hope in their eyes. But we know what's here, and we can't stay here. What if it's worse? Then we fight. She stepped toward the tunnel. But at least we'll be fighting to get home, not just wandering. She entered the tunnel. After a moment, David followed, then Jenny. Behind them, the watchers watched and waited. The tunnel was dark, but not completely. There was light ahead, faint, growing stronger as they walked. They walked for what felt like hours, but might have been minutes. Time was still unreliable here, but the light grew, and the air changed, became fresher, more real. Then they emerged. Into the parking lot, the real parking lot, with cars, people, the sound of traffic on a distant road. We made it, Jenny sobbed. We actually made it. Not yet, Sarah said. We need to get to the car, get away, before they. She stopped, because she realized they were still being watched. Not by the watchers, by something else. People, hikers, tourists, ordinary people. But they were all looking at Sarah, all watching her, all waiting. What's wrong? David asked. Look at them, Sarah gestured to the people. They're watching. They're just people. Are they? Sarah looked closer and she saw it, the way they stood, the way they waited, the patience in their posture. They were watchers, or they were becoming watchers, or they were something in between. It's spreading, she whispered. It's not just in the mountains anymore, it's everywhere. Sarah, you're paranoid. Am I? She pointed to a woman standing near the trailhead. Look at her, really look. David looked and he saw it, the way the woman stood motionless, the way her face was shadowed by her hat, the way she seemed to be waiting for something. Oh my God, he breathed. We need to go now. They ran to the car, Sarah's car, still parked where she had left it. They piled in, locked the doors, started the engine. As they pulled away, Sarah looked in the rearview mirror. The woman was still standing there, still watching, and as the car drove away, she raised her hand. Not in farewell. In invitation. They're waiting for us to come back, Sarah said. They're always waiting. Then we don't come back, David said. We never come back. They'll find us. Sarah drove faster, putting distance between them and the mountains. They can find us anywhere, the watching. It doesn't stop at the mountains. What do? We run, we hide, we try to stay human. Sarah looked at her hands on the wheel, at the fingers that were still her own, still real, and we never ever look back. But even as she said it, she knew it was impossible. She could feel them still, the watchers, in her mind, in her memory, in the part of her that had touched their world. She was marked now, changed, not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough that they would always be watching her. Enough that she would always be watching for them. They drove for hours, putting miles between themselves and the mountains. Sarah drove until her hands cramped, until her eyes blurred, until she couldn't stay awake anymore. David took over, then Jenny. They drove through the night, through the day, through towns and cities and landscapes that were normal, real, safe. But they didn't feel safe. Every shadow was a watcher. Every motionless figure was a threat. Every reflection in a window was a void waiting to consume them. We need to stop, David said on the second day. We need rest, food, a plan. We can't stop, Sarah said. They're following, they're always following. Sarah, we're 3 states away. We're in Kansas. There's nothing here but wheat fields. They're not physical, they don't need to follow physically. They can. They can see through us, through the connection. What connection? The one we made when we looked, when we entered their world. Sarah touched her temple. I can feel them in here, watching, waiting. You're imagining it. Am I? She turned to look at him and her eyes were different, darker, deeper. David, I can see them, right now, standing on the horizon, watching this car. There's nothing on the horizon, just wheat. Look closer. He looked and he saw it. A shape tall, thin, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, standing motionless in the middle of a wheat field. Oh God, he whispered. They're everywhere now. Sarah turned back to the road. They've spread. They're not just in the mountains anymore. They're wherever we are, wherever anyone looks for them. Then we stop looking. We can't stop. We're already marked, already connected. She gripped the wheel tighter. The only way to end this is to break the connection, to cut ourselves off completely. How? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. They found the answer in a library. Not a big library, not a university library. A small town library in Oklahoma, staffed by a single librarian who was old enough to remember things that most people had forgotten. Sarah asked about the Dark Watchers, about mountain legends, about people who had escaped. The librarian, her name was Mrs. Henderson, looked at her with eyes that were too knowing. You've seen them, she said, not a question. Yes. And you've come back. Yes. Not many do. Mrs. Henderson led her to a back room, a special collection, books that weren't in the catalog. Those who do, they're changed, marked. I know, I can feel them, watching. Yes. Mrs. Henderson pulled out a book, old, leather-bound. The Watchers don't just take people, they take potential, possibility, the futures you might have had, the lives you might have lived. How do I get them back? You don't. Mrs. Henderson opened the book, showed her pages filled with symbols, diagrams, instructions. But you can stop them from taking more. You can sever the connection. How? By giving them what they want. Mrs. Henderson pointed to a diagram, a trade, but not the trade they expect. I don't understand. They want your eyes, your perspective, your human sight. Mrs. Henderson looked at her and Sarah saw something in her eyes, a void deep and dark that had been hidden before. But what if you gave them something else, something they didn't want, something that would poison them? Like what? A reflection. Mrs. Henderson smiled, and it was not a human smile. They watch, they reflect what they see, but what if what they saw was itself? What if they had to watch themselves watching? Infinite recursion. Exactly. Mrs. Henderson closed the book. You need to show them a mirror, a true mirror, not glass they can see through glass, but a reflection of their own nature, their own watching. How do I do that? You become the mirror. You let them see through you, but you reflect back only themselves. They're watching, they're waiting, their endless, eternal patience. And then they become trapped, caught in the loop, watching themselves, forever. What happens to me? You become the mirror. Mrs. Henderson touched her face, her own face, and Sarah saw that it was changing, becoming void, becoming empty. You become part of them, but different, a reflection rather than a perspective. I become a watcher. You become the thing that traps them, the thing that ends them. Mrs. Henderson's voice was slowing, deepening. It's a sacrifice, but it's the only way. Why are you telling me this? Because I was like you. The old woman's eyes were almost void now, almost empty. I escaped. I ran. I thought I was safe, but they found me. They always find you unless you become the trap, unless you end the cycle. And you didn't. I was afraid. Mrs. Henderson smiled, sad and terrible. I'm still afraid, but you have the strength, I can see it, the willingness to become, to sacrifice. How do you know? Because you're still here, still fighting, still asking questions. Mrs. Henderson handed her the book. Most people give up, accept, become willingly, but you want to end it, to stop it, to protect others. I do. Then do it. Mrs. Henderson stepped back, fading into the shadows of the room. Go back to the mountains. Find the place where you entered. and become the mirror. What about my friends, David, Jenny? They'll be free, the connection will be severed, they'll forget, return to normal lives. And me? You'll be the watcher who watches the watchers. Mrs. Henderson was almost gone now, almost vanished into the shadows. Forever. Sarah returned to the mountains alone. She left David and Jenny at a motel, told them she was going to end it, told them not to follow. She didn't tell them how. She didn't want them to try to stop her. She drove through the night, back to California, back to the Santa Lucia Mountains, back to the place where everything had begun. The trailhead was different now. Changed. The parking lot was empty, the signs were weathered, the trail was overgrown. It was as if time had passed differently here, as if years had gone by in the days she had been away. She started hiking at dawn, following the path she remembered, the path that had led to the cabin, to the peak, to the place where Mara had become. The watchers were waiting. She could feel them, hundreds of them, thousands, all across the mountains, all watching her approach. But they didn't attack, they didn't try to stop her, they just watched. Because they knew what she was planning, and they were curious. She reached the cabin by midday. It was still there, still empty, still full of the presence of the one who had written the journal. She sat at the table, opened the book Mrs. Henderson had given her, and began to read. The ritual was simple, dangerous but simple. She had to open herself completely, let them see through her, and then at the moment of connection reflect back only themselves. It required focus, discipline, the ability to hold a thought, an image, a concept, even as her mind was being consumed. She practiced, meditated, prepared. At dusk she walked to the ridge. The watchers were there, surrounding her, waiting. "I want to trade," she said, her voice loud in the silence. The nearest watcher stepped forward. It was tall, familiar, wearing a coat that she recognized. "Mara." "Sarah," the thing that had been Mara said, its voice guttural, "wrong. You came back." "I came to finish this." "You came to become." "Yes," Sarah stepped closer. "I want to see, I want to know, I want to be part of everything." "Then look," Mara, the watcher, opened its arms, inviting. "Look and become." Sarah looked. She looked directly at the void where Mara's face had been. She let herself see, really see, the emptiness, the hunger, the endless watching. And she felt the connection form, the invasion, the presence in her mind looking through her eyes, seeing what she saw. Now she thought now. She reflected. Not the world, not the mountains, not the beauty or the terror. She reflected the watchers themselves, the thousands of them standing on the ridges, watching. She reflected their watching, their waiting, their endless patience. And she reflected their reflection of her, reflecting them. Infinite recursion, a mirror facing a mirror, an endless tunnel of images, each one containing the next forever. The watchers felt it, she felt them feel it, the confusion, the trap, the realization that they were caught. They tried to pull back, to break the connection, but it was too late. Sarah held them, held the reflection, held the loop. "Watch," she commanded, her voice echoing across the mountains. "Watch yourselves, watch forever." And they did. The watchers froze, all of them across the entire range. They stood motionless, trapped in the loop, watching themselves, unable to look away, unable to break free. Sarah felt herself changing, becoming, her body elongating, her skin paling, her face emptying. But she held the reflection, held the trap, kept them caught. She was becoming a watcher, but she was different. She was the mirror, the trap, the end. She stood on the ridge, motionless, her face becoming void, her eyes becoming empty. But in the emptiness she held the image, the reflection, the trap. And the other watchers were caught. Forever. The hikers came in spring, when the wildflowers were blooming and the mountains were beautiful. 5 of them, young, adventurous, following a trail that was marked on a map they had found online. They reached the ridge at dusk, set up camp, built a fire. They laughed and talked and didn't notice the figures standing on the surrounding peaks. "Hey," one of them said, pointing, "what's that?" They looked. A figure stood on the nearest ridge, motionless, wearing a wide-brimmed hat. "Probably a hiker," another said, "getting an early start tomorrow." "At night. Maybe they like the stars." They watched the figure for a moment, then turned back to their fire, their conversation, their lives. But one of them, a girl named Lisa, kept looking. She couldn't help it. There was something about the figure, something that drew her eye, something that made her want to see more. "Don't stare," her friend said. "It's rude." "I'm not staring, I'm just looking." "Same thing." But Lisa kept looking, and as she looked she felt something, a connection, a presence. The figure on the ridge turned toward her. And Lisa saw. Not a void, not emptiness, but something else. A reflection, a mirror, an endless tunnel of images, each one showing the next. She saw the watchers, thousands of them trapped in their own gaze. She saw Sarah, the mirror, holding them caught. She saw the loop, the trap, the eternal recursion. And she saw something else. A way out, a crack in the trap, a weakness. The watchers weren't fully trapped. They were still watching, still aware, still waiting for someone to make a mistake. Someone like her. "Lisa," her friend's voice distant. "Lisa, what are you doing?" "Looking," she said, and her voice was different, deeper, just looking. "Lisa, stop, you're freaking me out." But she couldn't stop. She was already connected, already becoming. She took a step toward the ridge, then another. Her friends called after her, but she didn't hear. She was walking toward the figure, toward the reflection, toward the trap. "I want to see," she said, and the figure on the ridge, the mirror, the trap, the end nodded. "Yes," it seemed to say, "look, see, become." Lisa looked. And the cycle continued. The camera lay on the ground, forgotten, its lens cracked but still recording. In the frame, the mountains stretched to the horizon, beautiful and terrible. And on every ridge, motionless, patient, the watchers stood. Thousands of them. Millions. An army of watchers waiting for the next group, the next curious soul, the next one who wanted to see. The recording continued for hours, until the battery died. And in all that time, none of the watchers moved. They just watched. And waited. And planned. Because the trap wasn't perfect. The mirror had cracks, and through those cracks they could still see. Still hunt. Still become. The darkness fell and the stars came out, and the watchers remained, eternal and patient and hungry. Waiting for the next dawn. Waiting for the next group. Waiting for the next one who would look. And become. Shadow Protocol. A novel of special operations and supernatural warfare. Chapter 1: The Black Envelope. Jonah Barron was drinking his fifth whiskey of the night when the envelope arrived. He was in a bar in Reno, Nevada, a place called the Lucky Strike that catered to losers and has-beens, and people who'd given up on giving up. The kind of place where the bartender knew your name and your poison and didn't ask why you were drinking alone at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. The bar smelled of stale beer and desperation, the neon signs flickering with the irregular rhythm of a failing heartbeat. Outside, the Nevada desert stretched endlessly, a wasteland of broken dreams and discarded souls. Inside, the regulars hunched over their drinks, avoiding eye contact, avoiding connection, avoiding the reality that their lives had become. Jonah had been drinking alone for 3 years, ever since the incident. Ever since the dishonorable discharge and the psychiatric evaluation and the label that followed him like a shadow, unstable, unreliable, unfit for duty. He'd been a Marine, a good one, 12 years, 2 tours in Afghanistan, a chest full of ribbons that meant nothing anymore. He'd been on track for promotion, for a career, for a life. He'd been a decorated soldier, a respected leader, a man who believed in honor and duty and the protection of the innocent. Then came the classified op, the one in the mountains of Afghanistan, the one with the thing in the cave. He didn't talk about it, couldn't talk about it. The doctors said it was trauma, PTSD, a breakdown under stress. They said he'd imagined the whole thing, that the creature in the cave was a hallucination brought on by altitude sickness and sleep deprivation and the stress of combat. But Jonah knew. He'd seen it. The black eyes that reflected no light. The too long limbs that bent in directions that shouldn't be possible. The way it had moved, like reality was just a suggestion, like the laws of physics were optional. He'd seen it, and he'd killed it, and he'd been discharged for seeing things. 3 years of therapy. 3 years of medications that didn't work. 3 years of trying to convince himself that the doctors were right, that he'd imagined it all, that he was just another broken soldier who couldn't handle the stress. But he knew. In his bones, in his soul, in the darkest corners of his mind where truth lived despite reason, he knew. The creature had been real. Now he was here in this bar, drinking his life away one glass at a time, waiting for the end that wouldn't come quickly enough. The envelope was black, heavy paper, expensive, with no return address. Just his name, Jonah Barron, written in silver ink that seemed to shimmer in the bar's dim light. He didn't see who delivered it. One moment the bar was empty except for him and the bartender, a heavy-set woman named Doris who'd been pouring drinks for 30 years and had seen it all. The next moment the envelope was sitting on the table in front of him. He stared at it for a long time, whiskey forgotten, heart pounding. He knew that this wasn't normal, wasn't right. Envelopes didn't just appear. But he'd learned not to trust his instincts, learned that his perception was flawed, his reality suspect, learned to doubt everything he saw, everything he felt. "You gonna open that or just stare at it all night?" Doris asked, wiping down the counter. Jonah didn't answer. He picked up the envelope, felt its weight, its texture. It was real, solid, not a hallucination. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, heavy stock, the same silver ink. Coordinates: 39 degrees 1542, N 116 degrees 2533 W. A time 400 tomorrow. And a sentence written in a hand that was somehow familiar, somehow wrong. "They're real, come hunt them." Jonah read it 3 times. Then he folded the paper, put it back in the envelope, and finished his whiskey. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in his rented room, a weekly rate paid in cash, no questions asked, and stared at the envelope. The coordinates were in Nevada, somewhere in the desert north of Tonopah, middle of nowhere, perfect place for a trap. Or a recruitment. He thought about ignoring it, throwing the envelope away, packing his bag, moving to the next town, the next bar, the next life. He'd done it before, drifted from place to place, never staying long enough to form connections, never risking the exposure that came with familiarity. But the words echoed in his mind. "They're real, come hunt them." They knew, whoever sent this, they knew what he'd seen, what he'd killed. They knew he wasn't crazy. At 300, he got in his truck and drove. The drive took him through the Nevada desert, a landscape of shadows and silence. The stars were bright overhead, the moon a sliver of silver in the vast darkness. He passed through towns that existed only in name, through crossroads that led nowhere, through the empty spaces where civilization had given up. He thought about his life, about the choices that had brought him here, about the creature in the cave and the discharge that had followed, about the years of doubt and self-loathing and the slow erosion of his sanity. He thought about death, about whether it would be a relief, about whether he was driving towards salvation or destruction. The coordinates led to a dirt road that didn't exist on any map, winding through desert scrub and Joshua trees, until the landscape opened up into a valley that shouldn't have been there. The base was hidden in plain sight. No fences, no guards, no signs. Just a collection of low buildings that looked like they'd grown out of the rock itself, surrounded by vehicles that were too new, too clean, too military. Jonah stopped at what looked like a checkpoint, though there was no gate, no barrier. Just a man in tactical gear who stepped out of the shadows and raised a hand. ID. Jonah showed his driver's license. The man looked at it, looked at him, nodded. Dr. Barron, we've been expecting you. Park over there. Someone will meet you. I'm not a doctor. I have a master's in criminal psychology. Close enough. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Welcome to Night Watch, sir. Jonah parked, got out, stood in the desert dawn and waited. The woman who approached him was 50, maybe older, her hair gray, her face lined with scars that looked like they'd come from something other than combat. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt, hiking boots, but she moved like military, like someone who knew how to kill. Jonah Barron, she said, not a question, the Marine who saw the cave creature. I didn't see anything. That's what the report says. The report is wrong. She extended a hand. I'm Commander Elena Vargas. I run Night Watch, and I need you. Jonah didn't shake her hand. For what? For what you saw, what you killed, what you know is real. She dropped her hand, didn't seem offended. We hunt them, Mr. Barron, the things that don't exist. The things that the government denies, the scientists dismiss, the world ignores. We hunt them and we kill them and we make sure they never threaten humanity again. And you want me to join? I want you to help us understand them. You've seen one up close. You've killed one. That makes you valuable. That makes you necessary. I was discharged for being crazy. You were discharged because the truth is dangerous. Because if people knew what was really out there, what really hunts in the dark, there would be panic, chaos, collapse. She stepped closer, her eyes hard. But we know, we've always known, and we've always fought. Why me? There must be others. There are, but most of them are dead. The things we hunt, they're learning, adapting, getting stronger. We need fresh blood, new perspectives, people who have faced the darkness and survived. She smiled, and this time it was genuine. You survived, Mr. Barron. That makes you special. Jonah looked at the base, at the buildings that seemed to absorb the dawn light. He thought about the envelope, the message, the chance to prove that he wasn't crazy. What do I have to do? Come inside, meet the team, learn what we do, and then, she turned, gesturing toward the largest building, we'll see if you're ready to hunt. He followed her inside. The building was bigger than it looked from the outside, extending deep underground. They walked through corridors that were clean, modern, filled with people in lab coats and military uniforms and something in between. Night Watch was founded in 1947, Vargas explained as they walked. After Roswell, the government realized that we weren't alone, not in the sense of aliens from space, but in the sense of other things. Things that had always been here, hiding in the shadows, feeding on humanity. Like the thing I saw. Exactly like that. We've had many names over the years. Project Blue Book, Majestic 12, the Bureau of Unexplained Phenomena. Now we're just Night Watch, simple, direct. And you kill these things. When we can, sometimes we capture them, study them, learn their weaknesses. She stopped at a door, swiped a card. But mostly, yes, we kill them, because the alternative is letting them kill us. The door opened onto a briefing room. 5 people looked up as they entered, 3 men, 2 women, all with the same hard eyes and tired expressions that Jonah recognized from his own mirror. Team, Vargas said, this is Jonah Barron, our newest recruit. Jonah, meet the people who are going to keep you alive. The first to stand was a small man, maybe 5'5", with nervous hands and eyes that darted constantly. He wore a lab coat over tactical gear, and Jonah noticed the machete at his belt, silver blade, strange symbols etched into the metal. Dr. Marcus Webb, he said, his voice high-strained. Call me Doc. Everyone does. I'm the team medic and resident expert on biological anomalies. He means monsters, said the next man, standing up. He was big, 6'4", 250 pounds of muscle with a shaved head and a cross tattooed on his neck. I'm Hicks, heavy weapons, and this, he touched the cross, isn't just for show. It's Enochian script, angel language, keeps the bad things away. Mostly, Doc muttered. Mostly, Hicks agreed, grinning. The third man stayed seated, his eyes fixed on a laptop screen. He was young, maybe 25, with dark skin and quick fingers that flew across the keyboard. Rios, Vargas said, tech specialist, hacker, the guy who got us into the Pentagon servers and found things we weren't supposed to find. Files with no origin, Rios said, not looking up. Documents that exist but don't exist. Records of operations that never happened. Budgets for departments that don't exist. He finally looked at Jonah, his eyes sharp. You ever heard of the black budget, Mr. Barron? Vaguely. It's real, and it's bigger than anyone imagines. Trillions of dollars hidden in plain sight funding operations like this one. Operations that hunt nightmares. The last member of the team was a woman who didn't stand. She sat in the corner, her eyes fixed on the middle distance, her hands working constantly, loading, unloading, reloading a sniper rifle with mechanical precision. That's Jenny, Vargas said, her voice softening. She doesn't talk, not since Afghanistan. Jonah looked at her, really looked. She was maybe 30 with blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, her face beautiful but hard, carved from stone. Her eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark, like she'd seen something that had broken her, changed her, and she was still trying to put the pieces back together. What happened to her? Jonah asked. Same thing that happened to you, Vargas said. She saw something that shouldn't exist. A black-eyed thing that stalked her unit through the mountains, killed 12 Marines before she put a silver bullet through its skull. Silver. Some of them are vulnerable to silver, some to iron, some to salt or fire or specific frequencies of sound. Vargas walked to the front of the room, pulled up a screen. Each creature is different, each requires different tactics. That's why we study them, learn them, understand them. And then kill them. And then kill them. She clicked a button and an image appeared on the screen. It was a creature, bipedal canine covered in matted fur, but the face was almost human. Almost. The eyes were too intelligent, the mouth too wide, the teeth too many. This is a dogman, Vargas said. Spotted in the Ozarks 3 weeks ago. It tore through a SWAT team like they were paper. Killed 8 officers before it vanished into the woods. And we're hunting it. We're capturing it. She clicked again, showing a map. It's been spotted near a small town in Arkansas, population 300. If it decides to hunt there, it'll kill them all. It'll kill them all. Vargas looked at the team, then at Jonah. We leave at 600. Gear up, get briefed, and be ready. This is your first mission, Mr. Barron. Don't make it your last. The team dispersed, leaving Jonah alone with Vargas. Questions? She asked. Why capture? Why not just kill it? Because we need to understand them. Need to know how they think, how they breed, how they spread. The dogman isn't the only one. There are dozens, maybe hundreds across the country, across the world. If we can learn how to capture one, we can learn how to capture them all. And if we can't capture it, then we kill it. Her eyes were hard. But that's plan B. Plan A is bringing it back alive. Alive for what? For study, for containment, for the war that's coming. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. They're getting bolder, Mr. Barron, the creatures. They're not hiding anymore. They're hunting in cities, in suburbs, in places where people can see them. The veil is thinning. The barriers are breaking. And when they finally fall, when the things in the dark finally come into the light, we need to be ready. Ready for what? For the end of the world as we know it. She turned away. Get some rest. Tomorrow you hunt. Jonah didn't sleep. He sat in the quarters they'd assigned him, small, sparse, military, and thought about the creature in the cave. The black eyes, the two long limbs. He'd killed it, he was sure of that. Put 3 rounds in its chest, watched it fall, watched it die. But what if there were more? What if the thing he'd killed was just one of many, a scout, a soldier in an army that was gathering in the dark? He thought about Vargas's words, the war that's coming, the end of the world. He'd joined the Marines to fight for his country, to protect the innocent, to be part of something bigger than himself. This was the same, wasn't it? Hunting monsters instead of terrorists, saving lives instead of taking them. But the thing in the cave had looked at him, had spoken to him, had said his name. Jonah, it had whispered, I've been waiting for you. He'd killed it anyway, put the bullets in its chest and watched it die. He could do it again, he would do it again. At 500, he was in the armory, gearing up with the rest of the team. Doc showed him the weapons, silver bullets, iron knives, UV floodlights, sound generators that produced frequencies most humans couldn't hear. Each creature has different vulnerabilities, Doc explained, his hands shaking slightly. The dogman, we think it's vulnerable to silver and high-frequency sound. The UV light should disorient it, but we're not sure. We never are until we try. And if we're wrong, then we improvise. Doc handed him a syringe. Sedative X12, experimental. If we can get close enough to inject it, this should knock the creature out. Should. Hope you like seizures, Doc muttered. Side effects include paralysis, respiratory failure, and spontaneous combustion. Combustion only happened once. Doc smiled, nervous. Well, twice, but who's counting? Hicks laughed, loading a heavy machine gun with silver-tipped rounds. Don't worry, Doc. If the tranq doesn't work, I'll ventilate the bastard. That's not the mission, Vargas said, entering the armory. Capture, not kill. Yeah, Hicks winked at Jonah. But if it comes down to it, I'm not dying to keep some monster alive. No one dies, Vargas said. That's an order. Yes, ma'am. They loaded into a helicopter at 600, lifting off into the dawn sky, heading east toward Arkansas and the thing that waited in the woods. Jonah sat by the window, watching the desert give way to mountains, mountains give way to forest. He thought about what he was doing, what he was becoming. A monster hunter, a nightmare killer, a soldier in a war that most people didn't know existed. He was ready. He had to be. Because the dogman was waiting. And it was hungry. Jonah closed his eyes and thought about the path that had brought him here. 3 years of running, 3 years of hiding, 3 years of pretending that the world was normal and that monsters didn't exist. 3 years of lying to himself. But the truth was, he'd always known. From the moment he'd seen that creature in the cave, from the moment he'd looked into those black eyes and seen intelligence staring back, he'd known that the world was bigger and darker and more terrifying than anyone had ever told him. He'd tried to forget, tried to bury the memory under alcohol and medication and the comfortable lie of insanity, but the truth wouldn't stay buried. It never did. Now he was here in this helicopter with these people who understood, who knew, who fought. He opened his eyes and looked at the team. At Doc, nervously checking his equipment. At Hicks, quietly praying. At Jenny, staring out the window with eyes that had seen too much. At Vargas, commanding, certain, afraid. They were his team now, his family, his purpose. Whatever came next, whatever waited in those woods, they would face it together. And they would win. Or they would die trying. Chapter 2, First Blood. The Ozarks were older than Jonah expected. Older and wilder, a tangle of oak and hickory and cedar that seemed to reject human presence, to swallow the sound of the helicopter and return only silence. They set down in a clearing 5 miles from the target area. The pilot, a silent man who never removed his sunglasses, lifting off as soon as they were clear, leaving them alone in the green cathedral of the forest. "From here we walk," Vargas said, checking her weapon. "The creature has been spotted near a ridge 2 miles north. We'll set up a perimeter, establish a base camp, and wait for it to show." "Wait," Hicks asked. "Why not just hunt it down?" "Because we don't know where it is, because the forest is its territory, not ours, because walking in blind is how you get killed." She looked at each of them in turn. "We do this by the book, observation first, engagement second, capture third, understood?" They nodded, even Hicks, though he didn't look happy about it. They moved through the forest in a loose formation, Vargas on point, Hicks and Jenny on the flanks, Doc and Rios in the middle, Jonah bringing up the rear. The silence was absolute, broken only by the crunch of boots on leaves and the occasional bird call. But the birds stopped as they approached the ridge. Jonah noticed it first. The sudden stillness, the weight of the air, the feeling of being watched by something that wasn't human. "It's here," he whispered. "We know," Vargas said. "Rios." "Motion sensors are up," Rios said, tapping his tablet. "Thermal imaging shows. Wait." He stopped, the color drained from his face. "What?" Vargas asked. "Some things, mimicking our heat signatures." He turned the tablet, showed them the screen. It was a mess of red and orange blobs scattered across the display, but one of them was moving in a pattern that matched their formation, following them, hunting them. "It's above us," Jenny said. Her voice was rough, unused, the sound of someone who hadn't spoken in years, but it carried clear and certain. They looked up. The canopy was thick, leaves and branches blocking the sky, but something moved up there, something large and dark, shifting from branch to branch with impossible silence. "Spread out," Vargas shouted. Too late. It dropped from above, a mass of fur and claws and teeth, landing on Rios with a force that drove him to the ground. The scream was short, cut off by the wet sound of tearing flesh. Jonah raised his weapon, fired. The shots went wild, hitting branches, leaves, air. The creature, the dogman, rose from Rios's body, its muzzle dripping red, its eyes, those terrible human eyes fixed on Jonah. "Hello," it said, and its voice was almost human, almost gentle. "I've been waiting for you." Then it moved. Fast, so fast. One moment it was standing over Rios, the next it was on Doc, claws raking, teeth snapping. Doc screamed, raised his machete, struck. The silver blade caught the creature in the shoulder, and it howled, not in pain but in surprise. It backed off, snarling, black blood dripping from the wound. "Silver," Doc screamed. "It works." Hicks opened up with his machine gun, silver rounds tearing through the underbrush, shredding leaves and bark. The dogman danced between the shots, impossibly agile, impossibly fast. Jenny fired her sniper rifle, the crack echoing through the forest. The round caught the creature in the chest, spinning it around, knocking it down. "Got it," Hicks shouted. But the dogman wasn't dead. It rose, laughing, the sound like breaking glass, like human screams, like something that had never been human at all. "Is that all?" it shrieked, using Rios's voice. "Is that your best?" It lunged. Jonah fired, emptying his magazine into the creature's body. It staggered, hit multiple times, but kept coming. "Run," Vargas shouted. "Fall back to the clearing." They ran. Through the forest, through the underbrush, through the terror that followed like a shadow. Jonah grabbed Doc, half carrying the wounded man, while Hicks provided covering fire and Jenny picked her shots, trying to slow the creature down. It followed, always just behind them, just out of sight but present. Jonah could feel it, feel its attention, its hunger, its amusement. They reached the clearing, the helicopter landing zone, and turned to make a stand. But the dogman wasn't there. "Where is it?" Hicks panted, scanning the tree line. Gone, Vargas said, for now. Rios. They looked back at the forest. No sign of him, no body, just blood on the leaves and the silence that followed death. It's playing with us, Jonah said, hunting us. Then we changed the game. Vargas pulled out her radio, though they all knew it wouldn't work. We split up, 2 teams. Group 1 stays here, sets up a defensive position. Group 2 goes back, finds the creature, drives it toward the trap. What trap? Jonah asked. The one we're going to build. She looked at the clearing, at the trees, at the terrain. Hicks, you're with me. We'll set up the net. Doc, you're too wounded to fight. Stay here with. I'll go, Jonah said. They looked at him. You don't know what you're doing, Vargas said. I know more than you think. He checked his weapon, reloaded with silver rounds. I killed one of these before. I can do it again. That was different, that was. That was real, just like this. He met her eyes. Let me help. She studied him for a long moment. Then, fine, Jenny, you're with him. The rest of us will set up here. We'll rig the perimeter with motion sensors, electrified netting, everything we have. You drive the creature toward us. We'll do the rest. And if we can't drive it, Jenny asked, her voice rough, then you kill it any way you can. They moved out, Jonah and Jenny, heading back into the forest where the dogman waited. The silence was deeper now, heavier. The forest held its breath, waiting for the violence to resume. You saw one before, Jenny said as they walked, in the cave. Yes. What was it like? Jonah thought about the creature, about the black eyes, the 2 long limbs. It looked at me, spoke to me, said my name. They do that. She checked her rifle, her movements mechanical, precise. Learn your name, learn your fear, use it against you. How do you fight something that knows you? You don't, you just survive. They moved deeper into the forest, following the blood trail that Rios had left. The ground was torn up, claw marks in the dirt, branches broken. It's close, Jenny whispered. I know. They found Rios's body half a mile from the clearing, or what was left of it. It was displayed, arranged. His limbs were positioned in a pattern that might have been accidental, might have been deliberate. His chest was open, ribs splayed, organs removed. And his face was turned toward them, eyes open, mouth frozen in a scream that had never been voiced. Jesus, Jonah breathed. Don't look at it, Jenny said. Don't let it get in your head. But it was too late. Jonah could feel it, feel the creature's attention, its amusement. It was watching them, had been watching them the whole time. It's above us, he said. They looked up. The dogman crouched on a branch 20 feet up, its body relaxed, its tongue lolling in a parody of a dog's pant. But the eyes were fixed on them, intelligent, knowing, hungry. Hello again, it said, using Rios's voice. Did you miss me? Jenny fired. The shot went wide as the creature dropped, landing between them, claws extended. Jonah fired, silver rounds tearing into the creature's side. It yelped, spun, struck at him with claws that raked across his chest, tearing fabric and flesh. He fell back, pain exploding, blood flowing. Jenny stepped between them, her rifle raised, and fired point-blank into the dogman's face. The creature staggered, its muzzle ruined, black blood pouring from the wound. But it didn't fall. It laughed, using Jonah's voice, his laugh. Is that all? It asked. Is that your best? It lunged at Jenny. She sidestepped, smooth as water, and brought the rifle butt down on the creature's skull. The crack was loud, wet, final. The dogman fell. Run, Jenny said, grabbing Jonah's arm. Now. They ran, leaving the creature behind, leaving Rios's body, leaving the blood and the horror. They ran toward the clearing, toward the trap, toward the hope of survival. Behind them the dogman stirred. Rose followed. It was playing with them, letting them think they had a chance. They reached the clearing to find Vargas and Hicks had been busy. The perimeter was rigged with motion sensors, electrified netting, UV floodlights. Doc was in the center, his wounds bandaged, his face pale. "Did you get it?" Vargas asked. "We heard it," Jenny said. "Not enough." "Then we finish it here." She checked her weapon. "Everyone in position. When it comes through the tree line, we hit it with everything." They waited. The silence deepened. The air grew heavy. Then the sensors screamed. "Contact," Hicks shouted. "North side." The dogman burst from the trees, moving faster than before, driven by pain and rage. It hit the electrified netting and screamed, the voltage coursing through its body, making it dance and twitch. "Now," Vargas ordered. They opened fire. Silver rounds, UV light, everything they had. The creature writhed in the net, howling, screaming, laughing. "Is that all?" it shrieked, using all their voices at once. "Is that your best?" It tore free of the net, the electricity arcing, burning but not stopping it. It charged at Hicks, claws extended, mouth open. Hicks fired, emptying his magazine into the creature's chest. It staggered, fell, rose again. "Silver," it laughed. "Iron, light, you think these can stop me?" It grabbed Hicks, lifted him, threw him across the clearing. The big man hit a tree with a crack that Jonah knew meant broken bones. "Hicks," Doc screamed. The dogman turned on him. "You're next, little man." Jenny fired 3 shots in rapid succession, each one hitting the creature's head. It spun, snarled, charged at her. She stood her ground, fired again and again. The dogman fell at her feet, twitching, bleeding, but still alive, still conscious. "Trap it," Vargas ordered. "Now." They moved fast, wrapping the creature in the electrified netting, binding it with silver chains, injecting it with Doc's experimental sedative. It laughed as they worked. "You think this will hold me? You think you can study me, learn from me?" "Shut up," Vargas said. "I know things." The creature's eyes, those terrible human eyes fixed on Jonah. "I know what waits in the dark, what comes when the doors open. You're all already dead, you just don't know it yet." "Sedative's working," Doc said, his hands shaking. "It's slowing down." "Keep it coming. I want it unconscious before transport." They loaded the creature onto a stretcher, still wrapped in netting and chains, and waited for the helicopter. It arrived 20 minutes later, descending from the sky like a promise of salvation. They loaded the dogman aboard, secured it, strapped in. Jonah sat across from the creature, watching it breathe, watching it sleep. Its face was peaceful now, almost human. If you didn't know what it was, you might think it was just a man, just a person. But Jonah knew. He'd seen what it could do, what it had done. "You're all already dead," it had said. He hoped that was a lie. The helicopter lifted off, carrying them away from the forest, away from the blood, away from the thing that had hunted them. But the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Jonah sat in the helicopter, watching the creature breathe, watching it sleep, and he thought about what came next. The debriefing, the analysis, the preparation for the next hunt. There would always be a next hunt. Always another creature, another door, another threat. The war never ended. The darkness never stopped. But neither did they. Neither did Night Watch. Neither did the people who stood between humanity and the things that wanted to consume it. He looked at his hands. They were steady now. The tremor that had plagued him for 3 years was gone. The fear was still there, would always be there, but it was different now. Controlled. Focused. He was a hunter now, a guardian, a soldier in a war that most people would never know existed. And he was ready. Ready for whatever came next, ready for the dogman to wake up, ready for the next mission, ready for the rest of his life. Because this was who he was now, who he had always been meant to be. Not a drunk in a bar, not a psychiatric patient, not a broken soldier. A hunter of monsters. And the monsters were going to learn to fear him. Chapter 3: The Interrogation. The transport back to base took 4 hours. 4 hours of listening to the dogman breathe, of watching its chest rise and fall, of waiting for it to wake up and start killing again. It didn't. The sedative held, keeping the creature in a state of drugged unconsciousness, its body limp, its eyes closed. But Jonah could feel it. Feel the intelligence behind the mask, the awareness that lurked beneath the surface. It was playing possum, waiting for the right moment. "It's not asleep," he said during the second hour. "Vitals say otherwise," Doc replied, checking his monitors. "It's faking, it's waiting." "How do you know?" "Because it's what I would do." Doc looked at him, really looked at him, and Jonah saw the fear in the little man's eyes. "You're like it, aren't you? You understand it." "I understand predators. I was a Marine." "No, it's more than that." Doc lowered his voice. "You look at it and you see yourself, don't you?" Jonah didn't answer. He turned back to the window, watching the desert scroll by below. They landed at night watch at dusk, the sun painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. The dogman was unloaded onto a gurney, still bound, still sedated, and wheeled into the facility through a loading dock that Jonah hadn't seen before. "Where are they taking it?" he asked Vargas. "Containment." She didn't elaborate. "You did good today, both of you." "Rios is dead. Hicks is in medical with 3 broken ribs and a concussion. And the creature is captured. That's a win." "Doesn't feel like a win." "It never does." She put her hand on his shoulder. "Get some rest. Debrief at 800. He didn't rest. He couldn't. He sat in his quarters and thought about Rios, about the way the dogman had looked at him, about the words it had spoken. "You're all already dead." He thought about the cave, about the creature he'd killed there, about the way it had said his name. "I've been waiting for you." They were connected, these creatures, not just in species but in purpose. They knew things, saw things, planned things. And they were hunting him specifically, not just the team, not just Night Watch, him. Why? He didn't sleep. At 700 he showered, dressed, and went to the briefing room. The team was there minus Rios. Hicks was bandaged, moving stiffly but alive. Doc looked like he hadn't slept, his eyes red, his hands shaking. Jenny sat in the corner, silent as always, her rifle across her knees. Vargas stood at the front, a screen behind her showing images of the dogman in its cell. "Subject is stable," she said. "Sedated, contained, under observation. Initial tests show interesting results." She clicked to the next image. The dogman, photographed through reinforced glass, its body stripped of fur in patches, revealing skin that was human, Doc said. "Under the fur it's human, or was." "Explain," Jonah said. "We took samples, DNA analysis." Doc pulled up a chart. "It's a match. The creature was a human being, male, Caucasian, approximately 35 years old." "That's impossible," Hicks said. "That thing tore through a SWAT team. It dropped from trees. It wasn't human." "It was once." Doc clicked to another image. A man, ordinary, brown hair, brown eyes, a face that wouldn't stand out in a crowd. "Michael Torres, missing person reported 3 years ago. Vanished from a campsite in Colorado, never found." "Until now," Vargas said. "You're saying that thing used to be this guy?" Hicks asked. "We're saying the dogman is a transformation, a conversion. Something changes them, makes them into this." "What something?" "We don't know yet." Vargas looked at the screen. "But we're going to find out. That's why we captured it, to understand the process, to reverse it if we can." "And if we can't?" "Then we kill it." Her voice was flat, humanely. The room was silent. Jonah thought about the creature, about the intelligence in its eyes, the voice that had used Rios's words. "It spoke to me," he said. "In the forest it said we're all already dead, that something is coming." "Standard psychological warfare," Vargas said. "They learn your fears, your doubts, and they use them against you." It knew my name. It heard Vargas say it. It knew things it couldn't have overheard. Vargas was silent for a moment. Then, "We'll investigate. In the meantime, we have other concerns." She clicked to a new image, a map of the United States dotted with red markers. Sightings have increased, 17 in the past month, up from 3 the month before. Whatever's happening, it's accelerating. "The veil is thinning," Doc whispered. "The what?" "The barrier between our world and elsewhere." Doc looked at Jonah, his eyes wide. "It's not just these creatures, it's everything. The skinwalkers, the wendigos, the things that wear human faces. They're all getting stronger, more active, more bold." "Why?" Jonah asked. "We don't know, but we have theories." Vargas pulled up another image, a diagram of concentric circles like ripples in water. "Something is coming, something big. These creatures, they're scouts, harbingers, the advance guard of an invasion we don't understand and can't predict." "An invasion from where?" "From outside, from beyond, from the places that exist in the corners of our vision, in the spaces between heartbeats, in the dark behind closed eyes." She turned to face them. "Our job is to stop it, to hold the line, to keep the darkness at bay for as long as we can." "And when we can't?" Jenny asked, her voice rough. "Then we die." Vargas smiled, but there was no humor in it. "But we die fighting." The briefing continued, covering logistics, equipment, the next mission. But Jonah wasn't listening. He was thinking about the dogman, about the human face beneath the fur, about the transformation that had turned a man into a monster. What if it was reversible? What if they could save Michael Tors, bring him back from whatever hell he'd been trapped in? And what if they couldn't? What if the only mercy was a bullet? After the briefing, he went to the containment level, found the cell where the dogman was held. It was awake. The creature sat on the floor of its cell, legs crossed, hands resting on its knees. The fur had been shaved from its face, revealing the human features beneath. A strong jaw, a straight nose, eyes that were brown and sad and aware. "Hello, Jonah," it said. Its voice was different now, softer, gentler. "I knew you'd come." "How do you know my name?" "I know many things." It smiled, and the smile was almost human. "I know why you're here, what you're looking for." "And what's that?" "Redemption." The creature tilted its head. "You killed one of us in the cave. You think that makes you a monster. You think that stains your soul. But it doesn't, Jonah. It makes you a survivor." "I'm not here to talk about me." "No, then why are you here?" "To understand you, what you are, what happened to you." "What happened?" The creature laughed, a soft, sad sound. "I was chosen, selected, changed, the way all of us are changed." "By what?" "By the dark, by the hungry, by the things that wait in the spaces between worlds." It stood up, moved to the glass, pressed its hand against it. "They're coming, Jonah, all of them. The doors are opening, the barriers are falling, and when they do..." "When they do, what?" "Then the feast begins." The creature's eyes changed, the brown fading to black, the humanity draining away. "And you, Jonah Barron, you'll be the main course." It lunged at the glass, striking with force that should have shattered it. The reinforced material held, but Jonah could see cracks forming, spiderwebbing from the impact point. "Guards!" he shouted. They came running, weapons raised, but the dogman had already retreated. It sat back down, crossed its legs, resumed its peaceful posture. "See you soon, Jonah," it said. "Very soon." The guards sedated it, pumped more drugs into its system, but Jonah knew that the drugs wouldn't hold forever, knew that the creature was planning something, waiting for something. He went back to his quarters and sat in the dark, thinking about the words, the feast, the doors, the things that waited. At 200, the alarm sounded. He ran to the containment level, following the crowd of soldiers and scientists, and found chaos. The dogman was loose. It had somehow somehow broken through the sedation, torn through the restraints, shattered the glass of its cell. The guards were dead, torn apart, displayed in patterns that hurt to look at. And the creature was gone. "Lock down the facility," Vargas shouted. "Find it now." They searched for hours. Every room, every corridor, every ventilation duct, but the dogman had vanished. "It couldn't have escaped," Hicks said, his face pale. "The perimeter is secure. Nothing gets in or out without authorization." "It didn't escape," Doc whispered. "It was never here, not really." "What do you mean?" "The cell, the body, the DNA," Doc was shaking. "It was all a projection, a trick. The real dogman, the real creature, it's still out there. This was just bait." "Bait for what?" "For us," Jonah understood. "It wanted to get inside the facility, inside our systems, inside our heads." "And it succeeded," Vargas said, her voice hollow. "We're compromised, all of us." She was right. Over the next hours, they discovered the truth. The dogmen had accessed their computers, downloaded their files, learned everything about Night Watch, their locations, their personnel, their operations. It knew where they lived, where they worked, where they slept. "We have to evacuate," Hicks said. "Shut it down, move to secondary sites." "And abandon the mission?" Vargas asked. "Let the creatures win." "We're not abandoning anything. We're surviving." "There's another option," Jonah said. They looked at him. "We hunt it, track it down, kill it before it can use what it learned." "We don't even know where it is," Doc said. "Yes, we do." Jonah pulled up a map on the nearest screen. "It's going home, back to where it was changed, back to the door that made it what it is." "Colorado," Vargas said, "the campsite. We need to be there before it opens the door, before it brings more of them through." "That's suicide," Hicks said. "That's the mission." Jonah looked at each of them in turn. "You recruited me for this, trained me for this. Now let me do my job." Vargas studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Gear up, we leave in 1 hour." They flew to Colorado in a black helicopter, no lights, no identification. Just 5 people and their weapons heading into the dark. Jonah sat by the window, watching the mountains grow larger, the peaks sharper, the shadows deeper. He thought about the dogman, about the creature it had been, about the man named Michael Torres who was still trapped inside. He thought about redemption, about whether it was possible to save someone who had become a monster, or whether the only mercy was death. The campsite was abandoned, overgrown, forgotten. They landed in a clearing and moved out, weapons ready, senses alert. "It's here," Jenny said, her voice certain. "I can feel it." "Where?" Vargas asked. "The cave, the place where it was changed." They found the entrance hidden behind a waterfall, a narrow passage leading into darkness. The air that came from within was cold, wrong, carrying the smell of copper and wet earth. "Jonah," Vargas said, "you know these things, you laid." He nodded, checked his weapon, stepped into the dark. The cave was older than it looked, older than the mountains. The walls were carved with symbols, spirals, jagged lines, patterns that hurt to look at. The same symbols that Joe Red Clay had taught Harlan Dunn to carve. "Wards," Doc whispered, "protection." "Or containment," Jonah said, "keeping something in." They moved deeper, following the passage as it descended into the earth. The air grew colder, the darkness thicker, the silence absolute. Then they heard it, the dogman singing. It was a song without words, a melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was beautiful and terrible, hypnotic and repellent. "Don't listen," Jonah warned. "Cover your ears." But it was too late. Hicks was already moving forward, his eyes glazed, his weapon forgotten. "Hicks," Vargas grabbed him, shook him. "Hicks, snap out of it." He turned to her, smiled, and said in the dogman's voice, "Too late." Then he raised his weapon and fired. The bullet caught Vargas in the chest, spinning her around, sending her to the ground. Hicks fired again and again, the shots wild, uncontrolled, filling the cave with thunder. "He's compromised," Doc screamed. "The creature is controlling him." Jenny moved fast and smooth and struck Hicks with the butt of her rifle. The big man fell unconscious, the song broken. But the damage was done. Vargas was bleeding, her chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. "Doc," Jonah said, "help her." "I can't, the wound, it's too deep." "Try." While Doc worked, Jonah and Jenny moved forward toward the singing, toward the dogman. They found it in a cavern deep underground, standing before a door made of light, the same kind of door that Harlan Dunn had found in the hollow mountain. "Welcome," the dogman said, turning to face them. "I've been waiting." "Close it," Jonah said, raising his weapon. "Close the door." "I can't, it's already opening." The creature gestured and the door widened, revealing a landscape of jagged peaks and bruised skies. "They're coming, all of them. The feast is beginning." "Then we stop it," Jonah fired. The dogman dodged, impossibly fast, and lunged at Jenny. She sidestepped, fired, caught the creature in the shoulder. It didn't slow down. It grabbed her, lifted her, threw her against the wall. She fell motionless. "Just you and me, Jonah," the dogman said, advancing. "Just like old times. I killed you once, I'll kill you again. You killed my body, not my spirit, not my purpose." It smiled, its teeth too many, its eyes too black. "I'm the key, Jonah, the door, the way through, and you're going to help me open it wider." "Never." "You don't have a choice." It lunged. Jonah fired, emptying his magazine into the creature's body. It staggered, fell, rose again. "Is that all?" It laughed. "Is that your best?" "No," Jonah said, "this is." He pulled out the device he'd hidden, the one Doc had given him before the mission. A resonance bomb, sound and light and silver, concentrated into a single burst. "What is that?" the dogman asked, its voice uncertain. "The end." He triggered it. The explosion was silent but blinding. Light filled the chamber, pure and white, burning away the shadows, burning away the darkness. The dogman screamed, really screamed, not in anger but in fear. "No," it shrieked. "No, no, no." "Yes," Jonah said, "forever." The light consumed the creature, burning it away, reducing it to ash and memory. The cave shook, the mountain groaned, and the doors, all the doors, slammed shut. Silence. Jonah stood alone in the empty chamber, surrounded by the bodies of his friends. He had won, but the cost. The cost was everything. He walked out of the cave, out of the mountain, into the light of day. The sun was rising, the sky was clear, the world was saved. But he was alone. He found Vargas waiting at the extraction point, her face pale, her eyes red. "The others?" she asked. "Gone." "And the threat?" "Ended." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Then it was worth it." "Was it?" "It has to be." She took his hand. "Come on, let's go home." They flew back to base in silence. Jonah looked out the window, at the world below, at the people living their lives, unaware of what had been saved. They would never know, never understand, never thank him. But that was okay. That was the job. He was a guardian, a protector, a soldier in a war that would never end. And he was ready for the next battle. He sat in the helicopter, Vargas sleeping beside him, and thought about the cost of victory. 3 dead, 2 wounded, 1 team broken and rebuilt. But the door was closed, the dogman was dead, the threat was ended. For now, he knew there would be more. More creatures, more doors, more battles. The war was eternal, the darkness infinite, and their resources were finite. But they would fight anyway, because that was what they did, that was who they were. The last line of defense, the final guardians, the ones who stood in the shadows so that others could live in the light. He closed his eyes and let the rhythm of the helicopter lull him into a half-sleep. In his dreams, he saw the cave again, saw the creature, saw the black eyes. But this time he wasn't afraid. This time he was ready. Chapter 4: The Aftermath. Vargas survived. It was touch and go for 72 hours, surgery after surgery, transfusion after transfusion. But she was a fighter, and she refused to die. When she woke, Jonah was there, sitting by her bed holding her hand. "You look terrible," she whispered. "You should see the other guy." "The other guy is dead." "Yes." She was silent for a moment, gathering her strength. "The door. Closed, sealed. The dogman is dead." "And the others?" "Contained for now." She closed her eyes. "We got lucky. We got prepared. There's a difference." "Is there?" She opened her eyes, fixed him with a gaze that was still sharp, still commanding. "You disobeyed orders, went off script, used unauthorized explosives." "I saved the mission." "You saved the mission." She smiled, weak but genuine. "Thank you." "You're welcome." They sat in silence, the machines beeping, the hospital quiet. "There's more," she said finally. "More doors, more creatures, more threats." "I know. The war is just beginning, Jonah. What we faced in Colorado, that was a skirmish, a preview. The real enemy is still out there, waiting, watching. Then we'll fight them." "We?" She raised an eyebrow. "You're not military anymore. You're not even officially employed. You're a contractor, a consultant." "I'm whatever you need me to be." "And what do you need to be?" Jonah thought about the question. Thought about the cave, the creature, the door. Thought about Rios and the way he died screaming. Thought about Hicks, controlled, turned against his own team. "I need to be the one who stops them," he said. "The one who closes the doors. The one who keeps the darkness at bay." "That's a heavy burden." "It's the only burden worth carrying." She studied him for a long moment. Then, "Welcome to Night Watch, Mr. Barron, officially." He stayed at her side until she fell asleep, then went to find the others. They were in the common room, the survivors of the mission, nursing drinks and wounds and memories. Hicks sat in the corner, his head in his hands, muttering prayers. Doc was at the bar, nursing a whiskey that he wasn't drinking. Jenny sat by the window, her rifle across her knees, staring at nothing. "We need to talk," Jonah said. They looked at him. "About what?" Doc asked. "About what comes next." He pulled up a chair, sat down, faced them. "The dogman was just the beginning. There are more of them, more doors, more threats, and they're getting stronger." "We know," Hicks said, his voice hollow. "We've always known." "Then we need to be ready. Need to train harder, fight smarter, work together." "Work together?" Doc laughed, bitter. "Rios is dead. Vargas is in the hospital. You think we can just keep going?" "We have to, because if we don't, who will?" "Someone else. Someone stronger. Someone who hasn't seen their friends torn apart." "There is no one else." Jonah leaned forward. "We're it. The last line, the final defense. If we fall, the darkness falls with us." "Then let it fall," Hicks whispered. "Let it all burn." "No," Jenny spoke, her voice rough from disuse. "We fight, we survive, we win." They looked at her. "You haven't spoken in years," Doc said. "I'm speaking now." She stood up, her rifle in her hands. "The creature in Afghanistan, the one that took my voice, it told me something, before I killed it." "What?" Jonah asked. "It said the war was already won, that we just didn't know it yet, that the doors were opening and nothing could close them." She checked her weapon, her movements precise. "It was wrong. We can close them. We have closed them, and we'll keep closing them until there are no more left." "Or until we die," Hicks said. "Then we die fighting." She looked at each of them in turn. "I'm not afraid anymore, are you?" No one answered. "Good," she said. "Then let's get to work." They spent the next month training, rebuilding, preparing. New recruits arrived, soldiers, scientists, specialists who had seen things they couldn't explain and wanted to fight back. Jonah trained them, taught them what he knew about the creatures, their weaknesses, their tactics, taught them to be afraid but not paralyzed, to respect the enemy but not worship it. Vargas recovered slowly, returning to command with a new scar and a new determination. She promoted Jonah to team leader, gave him his own unit, his own missions. They hunted skinwalkers in New Mexico, Wendigos in Minnesota, things that didn't have names in places that didn't exist on maps. They won some, lost some, buried friends and made new ones. And always they kept fighting. 6 months after Colorado, Jonah stood in the briefing room looking at a new file, a new threat, a new mission. "What is it?" Vargas asked. "A pattern." He pulled up a map showing clusters of sightings. "They're not random, they're organized, coordinated." "By what?" "By something bigger, something smarter." He zoomed in on one cluster. "Look, the doors, they're opening in sequence, one after another, like someone's turning a key." "Who?" "I don't know, but I intend to find out." He turned to face the team. Hicks recovered, his faith stronger than ever. Doc sober, his hands steady. Jenny silent, her rifle ready. "We have a new mission," he said. "We're going to find who's opening the doors, and we're going to stop them." "Where?" Hicks asked. "Wyoming. There's a facility there, Facility K9. It's been dark for months. No communication, no survivors. And we think it's the key, the center of the pattern, the place where it all begins." "Or ends," Doc whispered. "Or ends," Jonah agreed. "Gear up, we leave at dawn." They flew to Wyoming in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, their own fears. The facility was buried beneath a mountain, hidden from satellite, invisible to the world. They landed and found the entrance open, unlocked, waiting. "Trap," Jenny said. "Probably," Jonah agreed, "but we go in anyway." They descended into the earth, through corridors that were dark and cold and wrong. The air smelled of copper and wet earth, the same smell from the cave in Colorado. "It's here," Doc whispered. "Whatever it is, it's here." They found the containment chamber first. The glass was shattered, the trees inside dead, the artificial creek dry. And on the floor, written in blood that was still wet, was a message. "Welcome, Jonah. I've been waiting." "It's him," Jonah said. "The one from the cave, the one I killed." "You can't kill them," a voice said from the shadows. "You can only delay them." The Wendigo stepped into the light. 7 feet tall, antlers scraping the ceiling, skin stretched over bone. But the face was almost human. Almost. "Hello, old friend," it said. "Did you miss me?" Jonah raised his weapon. "I killed you." "You killed my vessel, my mask, but I'm still here. I've always been here." It smiled, its teeth white and even. "I am the door, Jonah, the key, the way through, and I've been waiting for you to open me." "Never." "You already have." It gestured, and the walls began to shake, the floor to crack, the air to tear. "Every door you've closed, you've opened another. Every creature you've killed, you've fed the darkness. You're not a hunter, Jonah. You're a harvester. You bring us the souls we need to grow." "That's a lie." "Is it?" The Wendigo laughed. "Look around you. Look at what you've built. An army, a weapon, a tool for the darkness to use." Jonah looked at his team. At Hicks, his cross raised. At Doc, his machete ready. At Jenny, her rifle aimed. "They're not tools," he said. "They're people. People who will die." The Wendigo lunged. The battle was chaos. Gunfire and screams and the sound of tearing flesh. The Wendigo was everywhere and nowhere, moving through shadows, striking from darkness. Hicks fell first, his cross shattered, his faith not enough. Doc went next, his machete breaking against the creature's hide. Jenny fired again and again, but the bullets passed through harmless. Only Jonah remained. "Alone," the Wendigo said, circling him, "as you were always meant to be." "Not alone," Jonah said. He pulled out the device he'd hidden, the one Doc had given him before the mission. A resonance bomb, sound and light and silver concentrated into a single burst. "What is that?" the Wendigo asked, its voice uncertain. "The end." He triggered it. The explosion was blinding. The door shattered, the light fading, the way to the other world closing. The Wendigo screamed, really screamed, not in anger but in fear. "No," it shrieked, "no, no, no." "Yes," Jonah said, "forever." The light consumed the creature, burning it away, reducing it to ash and memory. The facility shook, the mountain groaned, and the doors, all the doors, slammed shut. Silence. Jonah stood alone in the empty chamber, surrounded by the bodies of his friends. He had won, but the cost. The cost was everything. He walked out of the facility, out of the mountain, into the light of day. The sun was rising, the sky was clear, the world was saved. But he was alone. He found Vargas waiting at the extraction point, her face pale, her eyes red. "The others?" she asked. "Gone." "And the threat?" "Ended." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Then it was worth it." "Was it?" "It has to be." She took his hand. "Come on, let's go home." They flew back to base in silence. Jonah looked out the window, at the world below, at the people living their lives, unaware of what had been saved. They would never know, never understand, never thank him. But that was okay. That was the job. He was a guardian, a protector, a soldier in a war that would never end. And he was ready for the next battle. Epilogue: the next mission. 3 months later, Jonah sat in a bar in Reno, nursing a whiskey that he wasn't drinking. The envelope arrived the same way as before. Black paper, silver ink, no return address. He opened it. New coordinates, new time, new message. "The doors are opening again. We need you." He smiled, finished his drink, walked out into the night. The war wasn't over. It would never be over. But as long as there were monsters in the dark, there would be people like Jonah Barron to hunt them. And he was just getting started. This document is classified top secret. Distribution is restricted to authorized personnel only. If you are reading this without clearance, report immediately to your nearest Night Watch facility. The war continues, the darkness waits, and we are the only light. Jonah walked through the desert night, the envelope in his pocket, the stars overhead, and he thought about the future, about the battles to come, about the doors that would open and the creatures that would step through. He thought about the cost, about the friends he would lose, about the scars he would carry, about the pieces of his soul that would be chipped away with each victory, each sacrifice, each impossible choice. But he also thought about the purpose, about the meaning, about the knowledge that he was doing something that mattered, something that kept the darkness at bay, something that protected the innocent from the nightmares that hunted them. He was a guardian now, a protector, a soldier in the eternal war between light and dark. And he would fight until he could fight no more. The coordinates led to a new base, a new team, a new mission. The cycle would continue. The war would go on. But Jonah Barron was ready. Ready for whatever came next. Ready to hunt. Ready to kill. Ready to save the world, one monster at a time. Thank you for listening to tonight's stories. If you enjoyed them, please leave a like and subscribe.